Hello, everyone. In this week's episode of the Financial Planner Live podcast, I'm joined by Samantha Secomb, who is a chartered fellow financial planner and director of Women's Wealth. In this episode, we take a deep dive into everything from a female perspective. On one side, how Samantha has created a financial planning firm that has an approach centered for women. And on the other half, how Sam has used her groundbreaking research to create a working environment that is attractive for women to work in. We also touch on Samantha's upcoming academy and what that entails. And this is an excellent episode for everyone that's passionate about preaching female financial planners within the industry. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be speaking with Sam today. So, Sam, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Yes, indeed.
Good. So it's the first question I asked everyone when we kick off the podcast. Can you tell me a little bit about your career journey today and how you got to the point you're at now?
You know what? Having been in financial services for 30 years, I'm going to skip quite a lot of it. Otherwise, we could be here all day. But, 30 years experience. I started because back in the 80s, I got a divorce and I was also working for my husband. So it all went wrong. Like I didn't have a job either. I had two boys to raise and I needed some good income and flexible working. And this was before flexible working was a thing, for women. So this was the late 80s and General Accident were hiring mortgage advisors at GA Property Services. So I joined them and trained to be a mortgage advisor. The beauty of it was I could take my boys to school in the morning, drop them off, go into the estate agents for a couple of hours, work with the team in there to increase my referrals, and then I would go to people's houses in the evening, having got a babysitter in to sort of do tea and bed with the boys. And I would do my appointments in the evening. And of course, because they were mortgage clients, they're working age people, and they loved the idea that they could have a meeting out of hours. So it was that flexibility. I quickly worked out that I didn't want to be representing an insurance company selling endowment policies. That kind of like dawned on me within a year or so. And I thought, I want to be one of those IFAs. That seems the route to go. So I started to get my qualifications. But, God bless the insurance companies that used to train shed loads of salespeople and set them on the road to financial services roles, because I don't think we have that now. That's a route in that doesn't really exist anymore, does it? So I'm one of those old-fashioned insurance salespeople that turned IFA. But I do love being an IFA, and I very quickly went into the professional services side of things. The transition was a broker consultant with Legal and General. And then I trained with a firm called Tufton and Farmer, and eventually I became a director there. They were an accountancy-owned IFA practice. So that's kind of my bread and butter since, really. And the company that I eventually ended up owning and running is called Pentins, and that's now run by my son. My son, who's 36, he followed me into the profession, and he's one of the only people I know who left school knowing he wanted to be an IFA and took a degree it was banking and finance. That was as close as he could get, and he did his CFP exams in the holidays, and and he's now chartered and runs the family business, which has released me to launch Women's Wealth. So in 2019, I decided I wanted to make a difference to financial planning in terms of it being an attractive career for women, because the flexibility, the rewarding kind of relationship building that is just a natural part of the job is so attractive to women, and I think it's really overlooked. In fact, financial planning isn't that well known as a career anyway, is it? And these particular elements of it, which make it really attractive as an option for women, are even less known. So I'm kind of like, I'm banging the drum for that. My ambition, the big title for Women's Wealth is we're trying to democratize unbiased financial advice for women, both as investors and as financial planners. So that's the mission. COVID really played into our hands, because when I first launched the business, every intention was to keep it virtual, which was a big learning curve. Had to learn to, launch and run a virtual team. But it did mean, and this was pre-COVID, and my clients early on in Women's Wealth, they said to me, "What's Zoom?" And they don't ask that anymore. They really don't ask that anymore. So, COVID kind of, one of the biggest pushbacks I got when I was talking to people about women's wealth and my plans for it was that I wouldn't be able to build the professional relationships screen to screen that I was able to build face to face. Tosh. Absolute rubbish. Turns out that that's not true. And I do think that everybody kind of getting much more familiar with screen to screen technology during COVID really made a big difference to that barrier. Not that I was ready to accept it as a barrier anyway, but it just got knocked down. So I felt like we had the wind in our sails, in terms of using technology to build those relationships. And when I think about my old-fashioned mortgage days that I was talking about, knocking on people's door, I used to take a flashlight with me, because no sat nav, street lighting wasn't what it used to be. I'm not that old, really, but but I used to have a flashlight. I used to shine on the doors to try and find the numbers, and I'd be going into these strangers' houses in the dark late at night, on my own. And when I think about that, I think I never really was aware of. There were a couple of times I thought, "Oh, I don't like it here," and left. But there's just no need to put yourself at that level of risk anymore, nor waste all that time driving and traveling around. And of course, it removes the geographical boundaries as well. This kind of virtual relationship with clients. So yeah, so that's what Women's Wealth is. We're democratizing independent financial advice for investors and planners, and it's how I'm going to spend the last decade of my career trying to make a difference. And my son's running the other business. I feel so blessed that I've got that opportunity, really, because I think without that, it would make it hard to be doing what I'm doing. And he does frequently, because we've bootstrapped Women's Wealth. It started off being a trading style of the other business. It only got its own bank account in April 2019. And now, now we're kind of growing it. It's a sort of a lean startup situation where we're funding it ourselves. So Ollie often says to me, "I'll make it, mother. You go and spend it." Because Women's Wealth has been quite an investment over the last couple of years. But it is happening. It is working out. So it's a new generation company.
And it's really exciting. And I know the plans that you have for the future, which we'll touch on later. But I think if we go all the way back to the beginning, when you were, running the business before, you said you wanted to make a difference, which was why Women's Wealth came about. Was there any particular instances that prompted this? Anything particular that you'd experienced? What really pushed you to want to make this difference and make Women's Wealth happen?
Well, I think there were several things. I was well aware that when I met couples, that it became more and more obvious. It's obvious to anyone who works with couples that men and women think quite differently about money. And that actually, it's not always the man who takes the lead either. Often I would meet couples and the woman was definitely in charge of the money, and the gentleman very happy for that to be the case, and then sometimes it was the other way around. So in couples, you'd have one person leading, but whenever I asked the question, what does wealthy look like? The man would generally answer, and it wouldn't matter whether he was in charge of the finances or not, in the relationship, but he would generally answer with status symbols. It would have sails or wheels or some sort, and she would always want the kids all in their own homes, education paid for, and for everything, to be certain that nothing was ever going to be worse than it was today. That's so, and then if you could get all that sort of nailed down, she would then start to talk about ambitions. Maybe there is a holiday home somewhere, or traveling, or so it was always this security thing versus this growth and status outlook. And that's massive. The other thing is, I noticed that when a man would come into the office and I would sit down to advise him, he would say, "Let me tell you what I want." Okay. And when a woman came in and sat down, she would say, "I feel so stupid. I feel like I should know more. Will you please tell me what I need to know?" So they come at it from a point of view of wanting to learn and be empowered, whereas men tend to already own what they want out of their finances and be a lot more directional in terms of. So these are very, very different approaches. And so I kind of wanted to make sure that we had a brand that, made it attractive for women to come and learn, be empowered. They didn't have to know already how to do this, to go and give a financial advisor's directions about how to run their portfolio. They could come and talk to us and we could co-create. We often use the term, we co-create plans with our clients. And they're much more likely to follow it if they've co-created it than if somebody said, do it this way because I said so and I'm the expert. I don't think that only applies to women. I think, we could all learn a lot from that anyway, but women very, very definitely feel that they are. I often find that the first thing we've got to do is lift the blanket of shame. People turn up and they're like, I should know more. Why don't I know more? How did I miss the lessons on this? And it's not fair, really, because it's not taught in schools. A lot of the information that we do get access to about finances is from people with a vested interest in making us do or think or feel a certain way. Because they were trying to sell us something. They're trying to, design a problem we haven't got so as they can give us a solution we don't need. So, so like you can't really. I had a client who once said to me, and I love it. I always use it. She said, I googled ISAs, and it's like trying to take a sip of water from a fire hose. The amount of information that came back to her. And the other thing is that I was meeting lots of clients in their 60s and thinking, especially the women, if I'd known you 20 years ago, you would be so much better off. And then I thought, well, how can I make financial planning accessible to women 20 years earlier, so in their 30s and 40s? How can I make it attractive and accessible? That it doesn't strike me as useful that clients have got the impression they already need to be wealthy before they can approach an advisor who's helping them create the wealth. So I wanted to be in that space, and that's what we've done. We've set up a subscription-based business so that it is accessible to those who aren't already wealthy, and it is attractive to women because we're very careful about the language we use and to make it a place where they can come and learn, build their confidence and be empowered by information. Whereas I think sometimes advisors' practices can be a bit intimidating and it can feel a little bit like you're disempowered. Like there's so much information, you have to leave it to the expert because nobody really gave you enough information to understand why you've ended up in this thing on that platform. So it is much more about the co-creation of plans.
It's very interesting that you said then, like someone saying like, have I missed that lesson? Because the brunt end of it is, unfortunately, with the education system and the way that it is, none of us really get these lessons. And I think it's all about when you, as you mentioned then, when you approach a financial advisor or a financial planner and you have those meetings with them, it's, just as much about education as it is about providing them with that advice, removing not that blanket level of shame, but also just like teaching them the basics. And we touched on this before, a lot of what you do, you provide financial advice to your clients, but it's also about empowering them. I love that word, co-create. It's not just pure advice, it's also the empowerment for them to make better financial decisions themselves.
I think one of the obvious examples of it is that, when a client tells us that they're a member of an auto-enrollment pension scheme and you say, okay, so what's it invested in? They rarely actually know the answer. So, just helping them log on, find the bit which says what they're invested in, having a look at that, and then being able to download a report. So many of them have not even engaged with their auto-enrollment pension scheme. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like these like little things where you can actually put people in touch with information that is available to them that they've just never bothered accessing, and it all seemed a bit boring and dull, and they couldn't understand why. And if you then say to them, well, actually, it's going to be the biggest asset you ever own in your lifetime, so we need to keep an eye on it, we need to make sure it's serving you well, they're like, oh gosh, better log on then. And I think we can overestimate, uh, the technicalities of what we do, and the importance of, of getting this projection about your long-term care needs and your inheritance tax sorted out. We need to get people with an emergency fund in the right auto enrollment fund in their schemes, and just in their first ISAs. That's where we are. And my mission really is to introduce early stage planners to early stage clients and let them grow up together. But I know that there are lots of people out there with enough wealth to be concerned about inheritance tax and multi-million pound estates where they're losing their residential nil rate bands and things. I know all of that, but that's not where the clients we meet are. They're in the accumulation stage of their journey. So it puts a bit of a different focus on what we're doing. And as you say, it's basic level education a lot of the time. And I wish we learnt it in schools. I wish we did. I think it's fundamental. How do we end up leaving school and then making up how to use money as we go along, when it's so important? The amount of wealth you create during your lifetime, it literally affects your health, your opportunities, your mental health, the opportunities for your family and your children. It affects everything. It's such a fundamental necessity in our lives, and yet we leave school knowing nothing about how to utilize it.
So it's really interesting. I was watching this, and this debate keeps coming up time and time again. When I speak on this podcast, I speak about it often, but I remember two weeks ago I was in Dublin for a wedding, and the next morning we were watching just the telly, and it was this morning, and they were talking about Rishi Sunak wanting to implement the English Bachelorette, which will mean that people will study maths till they're 18 years old alongside other subjects, which is, I guess there's reasons why, people want to implement that. But once you're in those latter stages of maths, for example, you're learning advanced calculus or how to answer all these equations, which really in your day-to-day life, I don't use the maths that I used at GCSE. And they brought up the point of, it's well and good if you want to do this, but why are we not giving, people basic knowledges of, their pensions, mortgages, taxes, things like that, which are realistically going to affect them in their lifetime. What the advanced calculus they learn when they're 18 probably isn't. And it's funny that you mention the auto enrollment pension, because I'm at that age where, I think a lot of my social group around me will begin accessing financial advice because they're at that level. And we had a meeting as a company about our pensions, and we work within financial planning as an extension of the profession, and we didn't know, where our pension is invested, what that means to us. And afterwards, we all as an office felt so empowered. We were all logging in, looking at the risk portfolios, we're all pretty much under 30. Like, do we need to be at a low risk? Well, the majority of us were. And it's that basic knowledge. So if you're speaking with people that are like, starting their financial career, do you think then that that empowerment is just as important as the advice? And do you think that other approaches lack that within the profession?
Yes, I do. I think that because a lot of financial advice firms are still focused on, I mean, there's nothing wrong with this, don't misunderstand me. My other business, Pentins, it's very much ad valorem charging, so percentage based charging. It's a lot of baby boomer clients with fairly serious chunks of assets that they're trying to make last their lifetime. And there's nothing wrong with that business model, but it's an assets under management business model. And it excludes people who don't have £500,000 to invest. So, it doesn't work for somebody who's not already wealthy. And I wanted to speak to people who are creating their wealth and may not already have it. And I think that's the difference really, is that you end up with this exclusive service where you already have to be wealthy. or and anybody who hasn't got the money to qualify to be in that club is then left trying to work it out for themselves on robo advice sites. And there's nothing wrong with robo advice sites either, except that human beings don't want to press a button until they've spoken to another human being. And that's, if you look at the data from some of the robo advice companies, they offer this ability where you can go and play with a portfolio. You don't actually have to invest money. You can pretend you invested it, and then you can keep an eye on it and see what it would have done if you had invested it. And they've got hundreds, thousands of people in these flipping portfolios who have never actually pressed the button and put any money in because they're too scared to. And I meet women who arrive at Women's Wealth and say, "Oh, I've had this pretend portfolio on Nutmeg for a couple of years, but I'm too scared to do it. I just I just don't really understand it." So they need that person to person experience.
Mhm.
The other thing, and robo advice will never manage it. And I don't think that it's part of managing an already established portfolio in the decumulation stage. But there's a big behavioural piece, which I liken to my slimming world journey. I haven't got into my bloody 50s, long into my 50s, without knowing what a balanced diet looks like. But the reason I go to Slimming World is because I get seduced by the short-term joy of a cream tea and forget that I want to be a size 12 and healthy for the rest of my life. So these kind of short-term things win out over my long-term ambition. Fortunately, I'm not like that with money, but lots of people are. And if we can help them to kind of, keep their long-term visions and goals in mind and keep the relevance of those important enough to compete with the short-term joy of like spending on a new thing, new shiny thing, or upgrading the holiday because you can. And will it really matter if you whip 2 grand out of your savings account? It's that sort of thing. Can we promote long-term thinking and vision so that it has a bit more of a kind of impact when you're making short-term decisions, which don't always favour your long-term plan? So it's about that, really. And I don't know that that's always, we do, when you're looking after a portfolio for somebody who's already wealthy, that you do have to kind of compete long term and short term with them, because you don't want them taking too much out too soon and they might run out. But it's a different psychology around the money journey than it is when you're working with people in the accumulation stage. And as you say, risk for young people looks different to risk for mature people. So it is, it's different. The age group that we're serving is different. I think the fact that we're focused on females means we use different language. I hate the idea that women are risk averse. They're not. They're risk aware, and they do like to they like to deal with security issues first. But once you've done that, women are just as ambitious as men, and they're often a lot more. And strangely enough, they trade less than men. So they're much more kind of sure and long term about their thinking, which makes them really great investors. So I think there's a lot going for the natural abilities that make women really good at long-term investing. Uh, the other thing that I really noticed different for women and men is that 80% of the women in Women's Wealth invest with a socially responsible screen.
Oh, wow.
I know. We're not a specialist ESG company. We are very much IFAs and we serve our clients. It's what they want, is what they get. But we ask the questions, and we ask the questions the same way in Women's Wealth as we do in Pentins, but a very different proportion of the younger and female client base invest in socially responsibly screened investments. So
That's really interesting. Can you make any conclusions on why you think, I guess, as you said, like you present the options in front of people
yeah.
and they choose what they want to do, but can you come to any conclusions on why you think this demographic is opting for these?
Do you know what I think? It's I have to generalize to answer that question. And a lot of what I do seems to be, super generalizations. And so with excusing that for the moment, I do think that it is that security thing. Like, there's no point in being rich if we haven't got a planet to live on. I'm not willing to do that by exploiting other human beings. So they've got this like nurturing, collaborative, security aspect that they want settled first. So they kind of come at the same way as they do about risk in their portfolios. I need to know we'll never be worse off than we are now, and that the kids have got we know how we're going to get them through education and get them housed and things, and then we can get ambitious. It's the same thing. As long as we're not exploiting other people or damaging the planet, let's go for it. So it's that same thing, really.
Really interesting.
Mm,
I didn't realize that as part of women's wealth, and that was a
yeah.
trend that you were seeing within your
Well,
business.
I didn't know it was going to show up, but it certainly has. So yeah.
It makes me proud, to be fair, that
Yeah.
that people are choosing to put their money in. And it's funny because I guess I'm a woman. I guess I fit in that generalization of the category of people that are accumulating their wealth, and I resonate with that. I think if
Mm,
I had a portfolio put in front of me and there was more socially responsible investments in comparison to others, I would probably choose those
mm.
for the very reasons that you mentioned. And you touched on earlier on that your approach is different with women. You use slightly different language to how you do with men. Aside from the language element, is there different parts of your approach and your focus that are different, for example, in the other business, or generally if you think that you were speaking to, I guess, more men alongside women?
I think again, you get alpha and beta personalities, and they don't necessarily divide by gender. So you can get alpha women, and you can get beta women. You can get alpha men, you can get beta men. So I think you have to kind of work with your clients as individuals. But I do think that approaching women with the kind of empowerment language and being prepared to help them level up their knowledge, I don't know that men would be attracted by that so much. Men actually would I again generalizing, but I think they would be inclined to feel a bit like they should know, so they're going to make out they do. They would present confidently, and even if they didn't understand it, they might not be as ready to say, "I don't understand. Will you teach me?" Um, and so that's the difference, really. It's very much more, educational empowerment rather than advice and guidance. Because that advice, and yet that all our careers, we're told, you advise and recommend, and we try not to make that the focus of how it works out in women's wealth. So that's the difference, really. We don't tell them, because we're the expert, that this is how they should do their money. This kind of like very directional approach. Obviously, for regulatory reasons, there is a suitability report which says why we advise and recommend what we do. But we are very clear with the ladies in women's wealth, the clients in women's wealth, because they're not all ladies. Some are the husbands of, and the brothers of, and the sons of. And we're very clear about the journey we've taken and how we've landed where we have, and that between us we've agreed that this is going to be the best outcome for them. But it's still that between us we've agreed. It's the co-creation element of it again.
I think that word level up, I think is so nice because I'm really passionate about how money can influence all different areas of your life.
Mm.
Money makes the world go round. We use money day in, day out. Try and spend a week without your debit card and see how you get on. And I think that word level up, I think, is so powerful because
Mm.
the advice and the guidance that you provide allows you to level up your whole life, because it allows you to feel more secure and feel more confident about your future, potentially do things that you thought you weren't able to do, ease concerns, because we all know worrying about money is probably one of the most detrimental things that you can worry about. I love that word level up, because I feel
Mm.
like once you feel at ease with your finances, you can feel at ease with so many other elements of your life and feel so confident with that. And I think
Mm.
goes back to that subscription piece, because I think that naturally does, having a wealth management firm or a financial planning company that's based on a subscription model, does naturally make the advice more accessible. Is that sort of the reason why you look to bring that in place?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We call it gym membership for your finances, and it is you do need to keep your finances fit. They need to work out, they need to grow, they need to last. So it's all the reasons that you generally go to the gym. You need to apply to your finances. And if you walk into a gym and try and work out how to use some of the equipment, and you've never been there before, it's going to look alien. You're going to feel intimidated, and the other thing is that if you've ever done any training or working out, having training partners, having accountability, it's all hugely important to actually getting the job done and making a long-term difference. So it's all part of that. So the subscription, and millennials love subscriptions. Tell me if I'm wrong, but like we tend to these days. I mean, even me and I'm not a millennial, but I wish. But I pay for everything on subscription. Even my flipping makeup comes like in a monthly subscription. I can't be bothered to go to the shop and choose it anymore. That's how it is. All my streaming, all my music. I mean, the idea of cluttering up my shelves with CDs and DVDs, long gone. So that's how we do it now, isn't it? We pay a subscription and we get our services. And what's more, we don't necessarily want them in paper or CDs, or we want it streamed. We want our records kept in some nice little app somewhere where we know where they all are. We want to communicate easily and readily on the go through our phones. And if we want to have a chat with our advisor one-to-one about something serious, sit down and we get our laptops out, and we do it screen to screen. Like it's kind of, we don't need the older physical manifestations of it. So it's this subscription basis. It's keeping it all virtual, keeping it short, sweet, and easy to access as well. So our clients have a link to our diaries. So although of course we do regular reviews, we have dates when we proactively go to them because it's the end of their trading year, it's the end of the tax year, it's their annual review time. But they also have a link to our diaries. So if they need a 20-minute chat with us, they can just pick a spot in the diary and we're there to have a chat. And that's really valued by them, that they don't have to, make an appointment 3 weeks in advance and then try and find a parking space in the middle of town. It's all of that. It's just like, I'll drop a link in Sam's diary. I can have a chat with her because I don't know whether to go with the company car thing or the fuel allowance thing. Which one should I do? So it's about that. It's about just being accessible, available, the way people want to talk to you these days. And we do this fixed fee arrangement thing as well, which is really important to the ethos and the culture that we're building. This business is not about assets under management. In fact, one of the platforms who are very nice to us, big supporter, said to us, like, what are the AUMs for women's work? What's the AUM? I said, I don't know. I honestly don't. It's not a metric I measure. And they're like, what do you mean you don't measure AUM? Like, they couldn't believe it. I said, well, no, I measure subscribers and policy arrangements, because that's how we get paid. So we do this fixed fee. So we don't care whether a policy is a tiddler or a whopper. We just don't mind because we earn the same. So yeah, so we £500 per policy. Normally, a client that you're onboarding will need a couple of policies. They're probably going to need 10 during their lifetime. And if they're paying, we've got two levels of subscription, and it's not about the service, it's about the level of technical capability you need in your advisor. So £65 a month if you're earning under 100 grand a year. And that's simply because the tax regime gets a bit tricky once you're over that 100 grand a year. So, you're going to need somebody with a greater level of expertise. So the subscription goes up once people are earning more. They've got bigger lumps of money that need investing, because they might then need to be introduced to things like VCTs if they've maxed out their pensions and things. So that all gets a bit more complicated. But we have a whole range of people who just really want basic level advice. And so we've got these two levels of subscription. The technical capability of your advisors is matched to which level that you fall into, and we charge arrangement fees per product as you need them. That means that they end up with a product that has got absolutely nothing being taken out of it to cover advisor fees. They pay all their fees to us directly.
It's crazy because it sounds so progressive because it's so different to what you hear other financial planning firms do. But then when you talk about, as you mentioned, like everything is on a subscription
Yeah.
basis, it seems like everyone else is just quite outdated. Like,
Mhm.
and I think I think what it is most powerful is making financial advice accessible to people that are
Yeah.
accumulating wealth, not just at the position where like I'm
Yeah.
coming to £50,000 and I don't know what I'm going to do with it,
Mm.
because at that point you obviously need advice. But even when I go back to telling friends and people what I do, they always think that it's really far out, when it's not. It's things that they should be able to have access to as well. And I think we pay
Mm.
so many subscriptions a month, may it be our TV streaming, our gym
Yeah.
membership, our music, financing our cars. When you look at it in that perspective and what people's key motivations are and what they really value, if you want to be in a position where you're financially stable, why don't you get rid of, a couple of the 5 TV streaming services that you pay for and
Mm.
focus on those things that really matter to you. So
Mm.
I think it's so valuable having that subscription basis to just allow different people, different at different stages of their lifetime, to be able to access and speak to someone that has the knowledge and empower them, rather than people, as we said at the beginning, just muddling through for years because they don't know what to do, and then they might get them itself into positions where they are unfortunately quite unfavorable. So
Mm.
I think it's really impressive what Women's Wealth are doing in that side of things. And I think another side of Women's Wealth that I am really impressed by is not just how you speak to your clients and how you deal with your clients and that element of the business. It's actually how you have made Women's Wealth somewhere which is really favorable for women to work
Mm.
as well. So I know that goes back to your research and what you've done yourself, but do you mind elaborating on that side of Women's Wealth in a
Mhm.
little bit more detail for us?
So it was very important to me that I actually worked out how to scale up a business and went and got the qualifications necessary to be able to do that effectively. So I went and did my MBA. And then part of that was a dissertation. And I thought, right, because Women's Wealth I used Women's Wealth in every module of my MBA. It got poked and prodded from every direction, from operations to marketing to strategic advantage, everything. Women's Wealth was my project that I took all the way through every module of that. And it was part of my dissertation as well. I thought, I want to know why only 16% of the advice community is female. I want to know why that's happening. I want to know why all these other women who are qualified enough to be advisors, so they've got diploma in regulated financial planning and more, some of them are chartered and advanced qualified, but they haven't got an SPS. So they're not practicing as advisors. And I wanted to talk to those women and say, why not? Do you not want the job? Or are there barriers for you progressing or taking those roles? And it turned out that women, they would like to be advisors. They love the idea of advising clients, but they're not willing to become more like men in order to do it. And that seemed to be the requirement of our profession. They, if I know a really, really well-respected B Corp IFA practice that I love. I'm not going to name them, but I love them. I love everything they do. And they said to me, Sam, the way we do recruiting, because I was going around asking everybody but the way we do recruiting is we got somebody in to help us build an avatar of an ideal advisor. And we built that avatar of an ideal advisor by talking to all the people that were really good at being advisors and building up this profile and all the rest of it. And so we've even called him Rob, because interestingly enough, we've got 3 Robs in the business. And I thought, can't you see the problem there? Do you know what I mean? If you keep building the future based on the past, you're going to end up with Robs everywhere. So, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of look at how do you build the advisor of the future so that it serves the clients of the future. Because if we keep recreating the kind of, I don't know, 1990s pinstriped escort driving, mobile phone shouting insurance salesman, then we are not going to be serving the clients of the future. That's the deal, really, isn't it? So I did this piece of research which talked to the women who would be advisors if it looked slightly different, about how it needed to look. They wanted collaboration. They didn't want to compete with their colleagues. They were ambitious for themselves, but they wanted to be a better version of themselves year on year, not better than everybody else. That was the deal. And Women's Wealth is very much about that. It's a supportive community to help women thrive running their own businesses, which will be as big as they want them to be and as profitable as they want them to be. We all know that you can squeeze more and more profit out of a commercial situation by making it less and less attractive to work in, and just on the edge of promise everything to the client and deliver just what you need to get away with it. You know, we all know businesses that run like that. But do you want to work there? Do you want to run that business? Or would you actually rather share some of the profitability with your clients and with your staff, so that actually it's a really nice place to work and you feel really proud of what you've created? And, you know, there is this kind of element of competition that will drive the joy out of your work and make the place you work awful, if you let competition just be the only thing and money and profitability just to be the guides to where you're going to take a business. So it's about creating a space where women can grow the businesses they want to run, work in the businesses that they want to create, and be the best versions of themselves going forward. And if you can provide that for women, then they want to be advisors. They really do want to be advisors, but they don't want shop. The other thing is the disadvantage that women suffer in the workplace are that when you talk about flexible working, I guess it's diluted a little bit since COVID, but when you talk about flexible working, it's seen as a concession for mothers. You know, so the minute somebody wants to do flexible working, even if they're a man, it's kind of, oh, okay, we've got another part-timer. No, not less hours, just different hours. You know, it's kind of like, so there's this, I don't know, stigma, bias that still exists in workplaces. And so lots of women are benefiting from and what happened was these were the women who are benefiting from flexible working, not having to show up in offices, because FaceTime in offices gets you promoted. You know the right people, you build the right vertical networks, and you know you're on the promotion ladder. If you don't show up, you don't get that opportunity. So if you're working from home flexibly, you're not in the same team, as it were, for getting the promotions. So these women were becoming power planners. And they were becoming power planners not because they wouldn't love and really be good at the client facing role, but because the power planning businesses were offering them work from home. Their pay was based on output, not hours worked. So that you write the report and we'll pay you your fee. And they had these platforms where they could meet advisors. So businesses are managing a platform, introducing, you know, these self-employed or work from home or even employed women mainly, to financial advisors, but men mainly. Um, and they were doing all this backup work through these platforms because it offered them the flexibility. The pay structures were clear, paid on output, not input. They didn't have to commute anywhere, and they weren't having to compete with anybody. They just had to be experienced and good and qualified. So I was thinking there must be things we can replicate there, where there's really clear career path, take that exam, get that experience, have that job. This is what it pays, kind of like really clear guidance on how you progress. You don't have to compete with other people. You just work out what you want for yourself and build that.
Mhm.
And we're our community doing that. It's not the working with women, I think. It's not the working with women clients that is the big part of it. I think it's the working in a female accepting, female first environment where the things that we need to support our careers are not considered a concession.
Mhm.
They're considered normal. Uh,
The first things first, I'll say I was reading some of your, because it's published by the CIO. We can link
yeah.
it down below. The people that are interested in hearing a bit more, reading a bit more, can read into it. And it was so interesting. This is why I'm going to break the third wall of the podcast and bring notes, which I've never done before, which is really exciting. So these are a couple of quotes from your thing that I pulled out this morning. So women place value on a positive working environment. They enjoy collaborating with others and sharing responsibility. They're resistant to assimilate into male-dominated environments. So your research shows that I'm now going to put the
That, that,
third wall back again. And I found it so interesting. And the one thing I'll say is, like, if you're a business owner or a hiring manager, and this is sparking something in your brain that maybe your workplace isn't as allowing of female, and you feel like it might be quite a male dominated environment in the terms of the structure, I really recommend to read the research, because it was super interesting. It reminded me of the research that I did at uni, so it definitely sparked that academic curiosity from me. But yeah, the research is so interesting and going into detail, and without even realizing it, a lot of the workforces are geared to suit men more than they are geared to suit more women. So one thing that you yourself have done is just really create an environment that is just attractive for women to work in. So
mm,
you mentioned flexible working. I know previously you've spoken to me of things about, like, if a woman needs 3 years off because she wants to go have a child, she can do that, and then someone can look after her clients, and when she comes back, they can be passed again as hers. Like, I guess, what key things, following on from your research, did you implement in terms of being like, this is what I feel like we need?
Well, it's very much that collaboration piece. There are enough clients to go around. Nobody else is advising millennial women in the accumulation stage of their journey on a subscription and fixed fee basis. So don't worry about the number of clients. There are millions. So we don't need to fight with each other about clients. What we need to do is help each other grow our businesses and support each other, because sometimes it's emotionally draining work. Sometimes it's kind of the hours peak because of, other requirements on your time as a mum, as a wife, I mean, at the moment for me, it's my parents. I'm the typical in that sandwich thing. My kids are all grown up. In fact, as I said, Ollie keeps saying about running the business and making the money and me spending it on my startup. So, like, Ollie's a positive influence in my life financially, but my parents, on the other hand, are both elderly. And it's quite different now, the balance. And women have these changing demands on their time, and they need to be able to flex the amount of work they do. So working in a team where we all work the same way, that's an important part of it. So none of this business like the old collaborations of 4 or 5 different advisors all doing it slightly differently. I mean, I think regulation prefers there to be robust, repeatable, centralized investment propositions these days, but it used to be very much that the advisors would all be joined together for some marketing banner, but actually they were doing things very siloed, very differently. And at Women's Wealth, we try and make sure we're all doing it the same way so that any one of us could drop into the other one's work and help out if needs be. So it's that real ability to collaborate, pass work around between us. It is making sure we get together, not in person, getting together in person. We've only managed twice since since launching the business because we are spread out. There's no geographical limits to running a virtual business. We are obviously we're UK centric because of regulation, but other than that, we're all over the flipping place. We do occasionally meet up somewhere. It's that afternoon tea thing again. That's a bit of a theme in my life, isn't it? But like we'll meet up and have afternoon tea at Brown's or something in the summer, and we're planning to get together for Christmas as well. So we have a couple of gets together, but we get together regularly online, and we share like the best and worst that's happened to us in a week. Some of it's hilarious, some of it's tragic, some of it's very technically educating, but it makes for a very lively meeting. And it's important that we're doing that. It's important that we feel that community, especially when we're virtually working with our clients and we don't otherwise have that much interaction with each other. So helping, supporting, collaborating, sharing, all things that don't necessarily sit well in the vocabulary of male designed, male run, profit motivated, competitive commercial enterprises. That's not to say that I'm not very focused on being profitable and commercial. If it's not, it won't survive. If it's not, we won't, as professional planners, get paid what we deserved. So like it has to be commercially motivated, but it doesn't have to be profit above all else. And I think that's the thing, really. That positive work environment that came out of my research is a really important part of what we focus on doing.
And it really resonates with me because as part of Recruit UK, we're a very female management team, and we always coin a phrase called hashtag collaboration. Because recruitment itself is an industry where, we're rolled by KPIs, we're sales driven, people are always batting each other off in other businesses to be the top of that leaderboard. But having a very empathetic, patient female management team that really want to empower everyone and want the business to be pushed forward rather than having individual desires has really reflected in a lot of our operational processes. So I really empathize with what you're doing, because I think having a female leadership team here has meant that a lot of that has naturally trickled down, because that's what we want to work within. But I think it's really important. And naturally, if we've said before, it's not just building a workplace for women, it's building a workplace which are attractive for women, and men can also work within that structure and be successful. It's about just understanding and empathizing with those different nuances. And I think one thing that you mentioned a little while ago, which I think is really nice or really poignant to bring back up, is that how when financial planning businesses don't have that structure, and especially within the financial advisor roles, that does mean that females get stuck in those back office roles as power planners, as administrators. I've, worked with so many different businesses on back office roles, and I have worked with individuals that have children and are looking for reduced hours. And the businesses have gone to me, we're output focused. As long as they are doing the work they need to do, writing the reports they need to write, we'll pay them a full-time salary as long as they're getting what they need done, giving them the flexibility work within their hours. But unfortunately, it isn't something that we see so much with the advisor roles. There's an expectation that, you've got to be in the office early and you've got to be out all evening seeing clients in their house. And do you think that different level of expectation on these two kind of roles then limits women to maybe not want to progress into the advisor side of things because they think the back office side fits their demands a bit better?
I think it starts at the other end of the problem.
Okay.
I think that because owning the client has value. I think when you're in a sales and assets under management and new business orientated environment, so not commission but like percentage of new business, then you have to be there early to get the leads. You have to, you have to be in the right place at the right time. And the more often you're there where the leads arrive, the more likely you are to get the opportunities. And then if your clients need you, you create an environment where, I mean, we would like, you know, promise to do the washing up as long as they stayed as clients. It's like, and then you didn't do the washing up. Of course you didn't. So like, so you would make all these promises and then you would be trying to deliver on those promises. Phone me anytime you like and I'll be there. Like, whereas actually if you start at the other end and clients who come to you, it's not about the new business. It's not about you always being available. It's more about them liking you, feeling comfortable with you, paying for your services on a subscription basis, but knowing actually they've got a link to your diary, but you're not always available. And then also, like, having the collaboration of a team where if you're not available, somebody else in the team is. So why is it that the advisor has to always be available for the client? Who sold that idea? The advisor did. So if you undo that idea and you actually teach the clients that we work as a collaborative team. Yes, I'm your point of contact, but if I'm not here, I work with this beautiful set of women. One of them is able to pick it up. We all work the same way. We all work with the same values. So like you could speak to any one of us if you needed to. Then you don't have to always be available. And you're not competing with each other, you're collaborating and sharing the load. So I think it's in the sale right at the beginning, the competition for the sale, and then the desire to hold on to that client because of the value of it and not let anybody else speak to the client in case they like them more than you. It's that competition, ownership of the clients, ownership of the assets under management, that mine mentality that actually means the advisors hoisted by their own petard, really. They're stuck in having to deliver that. And afraid that they'll lose the client if they don't.
And another thing that's really interesting about women's wealth is you're going through this like second stage of development at the moment where you're looking to bring new advisors in, almost created like your own little academy. So do you
Yeah.
mind running through like what you're going through at the moment as a business and what the next stage for you is?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to build what I call my dynamic dozen. So my first 12 money mentors, and I've got 4 and I need more after that as well. I'm bringing them on in cohorts of 4 because that allows them to practice on each other and train together, so they team up and client and advisor and do everyone loves a video role play, don't they? So like, but we have to have a safe place to practice and get our skills right. And I do quite a lot of training them as coaches first. As I said, a big part of what we do is help clients to become their own best version of themselves, set themselves up to succeed. And that's behavioural finance stuff. So there's a big coaching piece first, and the technical stuff comes along as they get their qualifications. So we've built the academy. With the Verve group helped us, the Art of Finance helped us build an academy specific for women's wealth and the women's wealth journey. And we support them through the modules 1 to 6 of the CII Diploma in Regulated Financial Planning. There's units on all of that. We would like them to kind of get qualified as soon as possible because all the time they're distracted with exams. It's eating into your marketing time and your client time and all the rest of it. So it's like focus on those exams, get that done, learn to do your coaching, learn to take on new clients. And we tend to give all new recruits their first 18 clients over the first year, because learning to generate your own clients is a whole piece of work on its own, and it's much easier. We recommend that a new advisor spends at least 4 hours a week marketing. And that's like in that first year when you don't need to generate any of your own clients, Women's Wealth will give them to you. You still need to be building your marketing funnel because come year 2, you've got to generate your own. And if somebody looks up your Instagram account and finds out you're 6 weeks old as a financial advisor, you've got no credibility. So like if they look at your account and you've been posting for over a year, about your qualifications, about your client experiences and all the rest of it, you've got credibility. So it's about, like, build your funnel, get yourself ready during that first year. And I think people fail to do that. Advisors fail to do that because they spend their time, again, it's the short-term fix. They spend their time where they can see an immediate return, so like an exam or a new client. They're not really thinking about the clients of the future, and you have to invest in that marketing funnel to, like, build your kind of your future demand from clients and your brand as an advisor. You need to know who you're going to work with and why they're going to pick you instead of somebody else. Because Women's Wealth, imagine I've got my dynamic dozen together on there. Like, if one's a crystal healer, one's a endurance marathon runner, and one's a primary school teacher, they're going to appeal to different people, aren't they? They're going to appeal to different people. So it's like, know yourself, know your brand, put yourself out there, make it clear who you want to work with. So building that funnel, we help them do that, because that's such a big part of being a self-employed advisor, is knowing how you're going to find your clients and how they're going to come to you, how you're going to talk to them. The qualification piece, the coaching piece, and right from the beginning, these 18 clients, the first 3 clients, they watch me do. So I'm training everybody at the moment. The January cohort will probably be the last cohort that I personally train. I've got somebody else in training to train after that. So I will mentor and train the November and the January cohorts, and I will do the first 3 meetings. We have a 5-meeting process, and I'll do the first 3 of each of those 5 meetings, and they will watch. And then they will do the next 3 with me there supporting them. So it's a bit of a joint effort, because things will get missed. I want something else covered. I want to nudge the conversation a different way because my experience tells me we need to go in that direction. So I'll be there collaborating, and it'll be a joint. And then the next 3 meetings, so we're on 9 meetings now, they will run, and I will try not to say anything. It's really hard for me to shut up. So, like, I have to go on mute, and literally, because that's the only way I can try and be quiet. And they run them, and then I give them feedback. And by the time we've done 9 meetings, some of the meetings they'll be able to just do by then, and some of them will still need some more evidence that they're working on the breadth and depth of their skills in those meetings. So it's about that, like, watch it done, have a go at doing it, do it with somebody giving you feedback, and then, take your skills and practice more and more. So that's the way we do it, live with clients from day one. Those 18 clients, if you stay with Women's Wealth and you graduate to CAS through our process, we expect that to take 2 years if you're a novice. If you've already got qualifications and experience, maybe less. But, for career changes through to CAS and fully capable of running your own client bank, 2 years. And if you graduate with your CAS 2 years, those clients we gave you are yours from day one. And then by then you should be adding your own clients to the mix as well. So that's kind of how it goes.
Oh, it sounds so exciting. And Women's Wealth definitely sounds like an amazing business to be part of. But I guess for you personally, why was creating, because, you could look to bring in 4 experienced advisors, why was doing that academy process, bringing people, the crystal hero, the endurance marathon runner, why was bringing in those people, quite important to you?
Because there aren't enough financial advisors. There definitely aren't enough female financial planners in the mix. And the ones that are already in service, in situ, established, they are not going to serve the clients that need advice. Well, their clients need advice, of course they do. But there's a whole other generation who need a different approach, and that we're never going to persuade these people who are already earning a fortune advising the clients that they're advising to stop doing that and come over here and advise these kind of younger clients at the early end of their journey. We need young planners to team up with young clients and grow up together. That's what we need to achieve here. And there's a lack of new blood, isn't there, in our beautiful young profession. So we haven't, when the regulator like put in place the floor of a minimum qualification and turned off commission, they made a very big statement. This is now a profession. But we hadn't lined up university pipelines similar to solicitors and accountants, spitting out people ready to become financial planners. Nobody knew, still, many people don't know what a financial planner is or does. And I not only think that that's a shame, I think it's such a beautiful career for women. I think it's a much more obvious fit for women than accountancy or law, because it's all about these long-term relationships. I go to the weddings, I get invited to the weddings of the sons and daughters of my clients who I set up the wedding fund in their financial planning 25 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
You know, that's the type of job that we do.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, it's people driven, it's so rewarding, well paid. And if you do it the woman's wealth way, where it's on a subscription and a fixed fee, and you're not a salesperson for an organization that manufactures product, you're a professional advisor helping clients become the best versions of themselves financially. You know, what job is better than that,
Yeah.
really?
I don't think there is one.
No,
And
no.
I'm very privileged to feel like an extension on the financial planning profession and be able to share the stories like yours, Sam, of your personal journey and the businesses and the future of this profession, especially for women. And I think that's such a beautiful note to end it on. Our beautiful young profession. I will take that with me moving forward. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, Sam. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.